Hey, it's Lee, and I know that this video is titled My Favorite Game That You Never Heard Of, but two things about that. One, you may have heard of it, it's just not that popular. And the second thing is, picking favorites can be really hard, especially with video games, since they straddle this vast range with games like Breath of the Wild, Beat Saber, and Ripen Tingle's Balloon Trip of Love. It's a thing. It can be really hard to rate these games since they feel altogether unrelated, or at least very different. They can't be compared. So I could say that this is my favorite pixel game or my favorite indie game, but I've got a bit of an odd category. Let me explain. I am typically a very social gamer. I play whatever my friends are playing, which works great because my best friend tends to have these mood swings where one day we're playing League of Legends and the next day we're playing Doom right before he mentions that he really wants Mario Tennis Aces. That being said, it takes a lot for a game to get me playing by myself. I could count the games that have me repeatedly coming back alone on one hand. For me, these either have to be really fun in terms of the mechanics, have a lot of replayability, or just a really good story and or aesthetic. To be fair, Mario Kart is number one for me, not for the story. But I play online, so it just doesn't count as an alone game. No, Mario Kart, I still love you, I just don't have time for you. But anyways, let me break down Risk of Rain for you real quick. You play this pixel roguelike as a part of an unlockable cast of diverse characters, each with their own unique moveset and playstyle. Your goal is to escape the planet you're on by fighting through the sea of different alien monsters to the portal at the end of each level. Now, there's a timer at the right side of the screen which indicates the level's difficulty, which increases as you go through. When you activate the portal, the difficulty boosts for 90 seconds. After the 90 seconds elapses and you clear the map, the portal is opened and you can go through to the next level. This repeats with a few different level types until you reach the final boss, which I've only ever got to one time when I was playing on multiplayer, which is no less fun, but far more manageable. As you play through the levels, you will find a bit of help through some items, sometimes dropped by enemies or found in a chest. Here's a couple of examples of these items and their effects. The ukulele gives the players attacks an electric shock that hurts more than one enemy. This mushroom allows you to regain health super fast while you're standing still. And this non-passive use item allows you to drop a bouncing brain, because you know, who doesn't want to drop a bouncing brain? Okay, so here are my 3 points as to why I think this game is super freaking awesome, or at least why you should give it a shot. Number 1. ROR is a roguelike, meaning it's a game where when you die, it's all over. There's no saves or checkpoints. This can be super annoying if not done right, but when it is done right, it becomes, for me, one of the most fun game types out there. In order to be done right, each gameplay has to be decently long, making each go feel meaningful, giving you a drive to survive. You feel like you're under a legitimate threat since your progress is temporary, although there are tons of unlockables and achievements. Speaking of which, number 2, the game's upgrades and items. Since this game gives you power-up after power-up, by level 2 you already feel like you're adapting to a unique playstyle based on your items, and you want to see just how far you can get before biting the dust. And when you finally do kick the bucket, you kind of feel like you could have done better, and you dive right back in. The game taunts you with its snarky death text and that wicked little try again button. This can get boring pretty quickly, but I personally don't have a lot of time to play games, so when I do have time, it's just in these little chunks of 2 or 3 games at a time, making it bite-sized and always fresh. It's a good game to play in between other things. There's also a ton of unlockable items, all with different effects, which makes for an ever-expanding set of random boosts that keep things very interesting. Number 3, the story and aesthetic. This game begins with a cutscene that feels like it has a lot to it that you have to discover. Each character has a bit of a unique feel and personality to them as well. This game's soundtrack ranges from moody and brooding with a heartbeat bass line to amped up gear grinding action battle saw, or some other weird mishmash of cool sounding words. All these things add up to a game that feels deeper and bigger than at first glance, and becomes more so as you play. My favorite example of mood setting is the monster logs. Occasionally the enemies will drop these books that you can check out in the main menu. These are entries in a sort of journal that your character writes that details a little chunk of story about how he discovered the monster and what it does. These are interesting and sometimes witty, which makes for a real interesting look into the fictional world that you're in. Overall, this game feels engaging. That's my word for it, engaging. And this is the only game that I wind up spending a lot of time on by myself. No, Mario Kart, it's okay, you just don't fit in the categories. Shh. Anyways, another game that I grabbed recently that is quite similar is Wizard of Legend, which is a really cool maze battle roguelike pixel game that sounds like a carbon copy of Risk of Rain, but it feels really different. Or maybe I'm just a sucker for pixel graphic Metroidvania roguelikes. Probably that. Leave a comment if you know of a similar game that I might like, and I'll make a video on it if it's any good, or if it's really terrible. Until then, I'm Lee. Keep being the way you are, unless you suck.